One of the most successful ways to hunt predators is to use calls.
But a good quality hardwood, you'll have a good quality call.
We'll take a look at how they're made, and we'll pay a visit to a boat building school. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. Predator hunting is a fast-growing sport here in Michigan, and it's been popular for many years across the U.S. Many of these hunters count on predator calls to coax their prey into scope range. And some of the most sought-after calls are made by a craftsman right here in the UP. I took a trip to the east end of the peninsula to a small shop in Cedarville to find out more about the art of call making.
Started Rare Earth, 32 years ago, in a need to get out to the coyote hunting contest, and I wanted to make a nice, pretty call, and I started with a local hardwood, bird's eye maple, and we sold enough to get out to the contest out in Wyoming and Colorado, and I gave one to my friend who was animal damage control officer down in Four Corners, and he'd never heard anything like it before, and so he ordered a bunch of them, and I started to think, well, the only difference between my stuff and the generic stuff on the market is I was working with a quality medium, a hardwood, which made the sound different than anybody else's. So I started to think, well, I know where to get hardwood, and then it took off from there, and now we're working with 26 different hardwoods from all over the world. Well, first of all, we take a block of wood, and this is a piece of desert ironwood, and we mark the centers, and then we put it on the lathe. And shape it to what we need it to be, whether it's a howler or a red F or a magnum is what we call the larger ones. Take reference points on whatever call we're going to do. Then the rest is done freehand. I mean, I've done it so many times over the years. Now we got it round, we got to get it to size. So what I'll do is I'll adjust this in so we don't lose a finger. You see some cracks in here. We'll fix that when we get down deeper and see what exactly we've got to work with. I do it a little bit differently. I make them backwards. I make the call first, and then I go over on my drill press, and then I tap it out. Take our call, mark it. When I do tap it out, each one will be different depending on how the call comes out. The thickness of the call depends on where I tap the sound chamber out. And that's the beginning of our call. Now we just got to shape it.
.906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Cooking Wild Seasonings summer sausage. Regular, jalapeno, and garlic. Get yours today at cookingwildseasonings.com.
These are some of the woods I work with. There's all kinds of stuff. Bacati and bloodwood from Brazil. This is some pretty rare stuff. Comes from Arizona's desert ironwood. Some of this stuff is 800 years old. The tree itself will live to 2,000 years old, so this stuff right here has been around since Christ walked the earth. This stuff right here is called Camphor rosewood. This comes from Thailand, and I'm the only one in the United States that has any right now. You can't get this anymore. The Thailand government doesn't cut it anymore, and they don't export it anymore. Really pretty stuff. This is Honduras rosewood here. This is another nice one. I come out and I'll make 4 or 5 now, and I'll go inside and take a break, you know, and then I'll come back out maybe a little later and I'll make a couple more. And, I can make them a lot faster than I sell them. I mean, you make 5 calls a day at 32 years, a lot of calls. Yeah. I make the calls quite a bit different than everybody else. There's the call. Now it comes the tricky part. And there's the call. Now we gotta sand it and finish it. Desert ironwood is notorious to have small fissures in it. There's a little tiny crack right here, and there's a little knot right here. You can see the little crack right there. So what we got to do is we got to take our CA glue and we'll seal that right there, right here, right here, and let that soak in. That dries it instantly, and then we take our 220 again and buff that out. Now she's ready to finish. Well, actually, there's not a whole lot of people who use a CA finish on their calls right now because they don't know how to get it on the call. You got to move really fast, and there's some secrets to it that I just don't want to give out. So now we have to buff it out, and then we'll put it on the drill press and we'll take it from there. And there's our call. Okay, now we got to take it off of the lathe, tricking itself. First we got to take this off of here, and then we shape the mouthpiece, and then we take a tool and we go on the inside of the call and taper it down to almost nothing till it's almost ready to fall off. And ta-da, there it is. Right now we have to go and tap it out. It's either going to be a call or it's going to be a piece of firewood. It's not a call until we get it tapped out. So just kind of centering the holes, a little bit of a guide for the drill. The wood is so hard that when you start to drill it, the drill will actually bend and go on an angle, so you want to start the hole. When she starts to sing like that, you know you got a good call.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works.
Rapid River Knife Works is the largest custom knife factory showroom in Michigan. hunting knives, pocket knives, and kitchen knives. Watch your custom knife being made and engraved. Free laser engraving with your personal message or company logo. Lifetime warranty on every knife and free sharpening. Bring the family and visit Rapid River Knife Works today.
Okay, now we have the sound chamber drilled and we got to get all those marks out of there. And this is where about 90% of your calls are lost, right on this step right here. Now we have that smoothed out. We got to set our chamber for the sleeve that holds the reed. And that step right there has a lot to do with how the call will operate when you put back pressure on it. There's the call, but it needs a voice. These are rabbit reeds or bird reeds. You want to blade the reed a little bit, test it. Okay, that sounds pretty good. You put the sleeve in there, set it to your depth, put that in there. Now we got to put our reed in there, set our reed, and there's your call. Ready to kill coyotes. I made this set here for my friend Bill Countess, who had a stroke and is no longer doing any hunting. And then we auction these off every year. This year we're starting a Michigan youth hunt. The money from these will come back to Michigan and get some prizes for the kids. And these, the African ebony ones here, gets sent out to the World Championships, and all the winners of the World Championships sign these, and then we auction these off for the kids too. And over the last 12 years, Rare Earth has donated over $24,000 to the kids. These two here are Thoya burl. This comes from Morocco. The burl itself grows underground. This is another wood that you can't get anymore. And this is a piece of Vera. This is my howler here. This one here will reach out over 1.5 miles. And this is just a little rabbit call. It's a little bird call. This one's inlaid with 23 karat gold. Piece of African ebony. Bird call. Spalted maple. And we put it in a vacuum chamber and inject resin into it so that we can turn it. Otherwise it's too soft to turn. This is a piece of Chichen rosewood. Comes from Central America. Over the years, I got my calls into the hands of quality callers, and then they've won 6 world titles with them. And now everybody in the United States knows Rare Earth Predator calls from Cedarville, Michigan.
Not far down the road from the shop of Rare Earth Predator Calls is the Great Lakes Boat Building School. It's the only licensed proprietary school of its kind in the state, and one of only 4 in the entire country. The Great Lakes Boat Building School is the ideal place to learn the art and craft of wooden boat building. I stopped in for a visit.
The school was founded 8 years ago. We are one of 4 major boat building schools. There's 2 on the East Coast, one in Maine and one in Rhode Island, and there's one on the West Coast out on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. We are a 2-year vocational style program. Our students come because they want to learn traditional boat building methods and make a career out of it. And we very proudly have a very high percentage of placement, over 90%. I think it's almost 97% of our graduates go on to be placed in woodworking, boat building shops, maybe restoration, a lot of new construction. This boat here has been the kind of the signature project for our first year students. It's a very traditional boat. It's called a Cornish pilot gig, and that refers to Cornwall, England, where they were first developed. And it's a gig because it's a rowboat. It's a 6-man rowing boat. Significance of this boat is that we are building it for the U.S. Navy, and it will be part of the USS Constitution. The crew will be using it for exercise, for training, and there's a number of these gigs on the East Coast, so they'll also be competing in rowing races. In the old days, they were used to ferry the pilot from shore to ship.
906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven.
Get in touch with your adventurous side and find your drive with Race Driven. As an online retailer, dealership, and manufacturer, we can provide power sport enthusiasts with virtually any part or accessories for ATV, UTV, and motorcycles. Customer driven, quality driven, race driven.
We started with fairly sketchy plans because we did not have the complete plans. But we had enough to get started. We lofted the boat. That means we drew it out full size, and from that we can make our full-size patterns for molds and pieces like the stem and the keel, the transom. The keel is made out of an African hardwood called Iroko, and we chose that because it's a very dense, hard, very durable wood. That was set up on the stocks you see there. The boat was built right side up, and then the molds were put in, and then the planking. And the planking is Port Orford cedar. You can see that it's perfectly clear, long-length cedar that we're using. Port Orford is a denser cedar than the local white cedar, so it's more appropriate for this boat. It's also a really nice, high-quality wood to work with. And after the planking was completed, then we put in the frames. There's 64 bent frames in the boat. They're spaced every 6 inches. If you look close, you can see copper nails. The planks are clench nailed together. That means it's got a copper nail that goes through the laps of the plank and then is bent over. That's called clenching. And then the frames are riveted in. That's very traditional style of mechanically fastening the parts together. Right now they're working on the inwales. You can see the one on the starboard side there. They're working on the port side. Once the inwales are in, then we'll install the thwarts. There's lots of knees that help make the structure very strong. We'll start the painting process also. The hull is going to be painted dark navy blue with a yellow sheer strake, and the name, which goes on the side here, will be painted in yellow also, and the name is August Glory. And August Glory refers to the first sea battle that the Constitution had, and when it was victorious over the HMS Gruyere in 1812. Our first year students work mostly on traditional style boats, plank-on frame, solid wood boats. Our second year students do a type of boat building we call wood epoxy composite. And this is an example of a project that our second year students do. It's a more of what we would call a glued boat. We rely more on epoxy adhesives than on mechanical fasteners. This is a replica of a 1926 Hacker Gold Cup racer. This is the second one we've built. And you can see it's an all mahogany boat. It'll be all varnished. What we are doing on this boat is we're doing all the woodwork, and then it will go to a professional boat builder who will install all of the mechanicals, the engine, and all of that. And he'll also do the finish work, the staining and varnishing of the boat. This is a little different than what we have done in the past. This is a fiberglass hull, and we are doing all of the woodwork on it, the deck, the wheelhouse, all of the interior. And we're doing this for a group in Alanson called the Inland Water Route Historical Society. They're on the Crooked River there in Alanson, and they're going to use it as an excursion boat as part of their waterfront activities. They're part of, they have a little maritime museum there. So they bought the hull, and we're doing all the woodwork, all the mechanical installations on it. And this is a 2-year project. This year we got the deck on and some of the interior framing and sole. And next year we'll build the wheelhouse and finish it out. It'll have a wheelhouse similar to that but instead of a permanent cabin here, it's going to have an awning type enclosure over the top here, and it'll be open. This is a sailboat that we've built over the last 2 years, and when we build a sailboat, we also build all the spars for it. And up here you can see the mast for it, and the boom and gaff are up there, and you can see the rigging is in place. So this year we did all the rigging for this boat, and we also made the sails. So that was something else that added to the curriculum here. When we do a sailboat, we can do pretty much everything, from the rigging and the sail making and all of that. So it'll be a complete boat when we're done at the end of this week. Yeah, the canoe we built this year, first year students do a little bit of wood epoxy work, and so this year we just built a strip plank canoe. It's all epoxy coated and then varnished over that. We have the seats to install, and then it'll be finished. Boat building has always been a small part of sort of the woodworking trades. I started 40 years ago in Maine and England, and at that time, you know, everybody was saying, why do you want to do that? You know, wooden boats are dead, fiberglass has replaced them. But 40 years later, we're not only still building wooden boats, we're still training young men and women to be wooden boat builders. There's a very active, although small, marine trade in wooden boat building, and that's why we're able to place our graduates. We don't graduate a lot of students, usually 15 to 20 a year, and that's pretty typical of the other schools also. But there's always a demand. We have a job board here, and we post jobs as they come in. We also work pretty hard to place our students where we think they're going to be successful. So if we really feel someone would be better going to the East Coast to a certain yard there, we'll try to make contact with that yard and help them out in any way we can to get them a job there. We have students working at maritime museums taking care of wooden boats. We have students in restoration shops. There's still enough new wooden boat building to take a few every year. So even though it's a small niche in the kind of the marine trades or even the woodworking trades, we're able to find places for these students.